All right, welcome to episode 3 of the PFEDU podcast. We're here today with Coach Naylor. You guys know her as Peyton. She is extremely nervous about this for some reason, so
of course you would say that.
We'll go ahead and just throw that out there, so get all the jitters out of the way. So I think we'll kind of start similar as we have everybody else. Why don't you kind of tell everybody as to what interests you in kind of being a coach, being a strength coach? Because I know you have multiple coaching roles here. You have you're a coach for us here at ProForce, but I'm sure many people don't know out there. You're also an assistant coach for the women's soccer team at NKU as well.
Yes.
So, what kind of makes you want to coach?
Honestly, it was just kind of random one day. I just woke up and kind of decided I enjoyed it. So I obviously played soccer my whole entire life. I've had several coaches over the years, and then my senior year I realized it was all coming to an end very quickly, and I think I didn't want it to be over, so the best way that I could be involved with it was talking to my head coach in Northern Kentucky about still having a role with the team, and he said that he would be willing to bring me on staff as an assistant coach, and that's kind of when I fell in love with coaching other players, using what I knew as a player and being able to teach other players the same things. And then obviously I started training here as an athlete, and then you brought me on as a coach, and I think I just like being able to share my knowledge with other people that share the same love for their sport as I do for mine. So,
and you're also a professional athlete, right?
Semi-pro.
Semi-pro.
Yes. Yes.
She's a member of the Sirens, correct?
Yes, the Cincinnati Sirens. They're a semi-pro team. I've been playing for them. I've started last summer. We would have had our season starting up this month actually, but it was canceled. So we might have a fall season, but for right now, it's been postponed. So
yeah, so I think you just hit on something that I think would be very appropriate for us to kind of have a conversation about, and that is being an athlete, right? And you can also look at this through a coach lens as well, but being an athlete, how has it made you feel that kind of, and how are you coping with it, that your season that you've worked so hard for is kind of, it hangs in the balance, in the wind. It might not even happen. So how have you dealt with that from not only a mental perspective, but I think as well, a lot of us have had to change our training perspective during all this. So what have kind of you done from a mental side and a training side now that your season has been canceled?
Well, so first off, when I first found everything out, I mentally handled it very poorly. I shut down completely. I didn't really want to do much. I was frustrated with the situation because I couldn't control it. It was just kind of like everything was ripped out from underneath me. Like not being able to, properly train for my season, not being able to coach the kids that we work with. So obviously it was very frustrating. And plus I had to move home for about 2 months. So at first I handled it very poorly, and then instead of looking at this in such a negative way, I figured that this is like the one time that I can literally do whatever I want to train. I mean, granted, we can't lift heavy and get super strong, but I can focus on my cardio, which is something that I haven't done in a while. I can get outside, go on runs. I can go outside on in the grass and work on soccer moves, get outside. You just got to look at the little things and take this time as not a negative and focus on trying to make yourself better mentally and physically. And I think that's, once I realized that, I've been a lot happier. My perspective has changed. And, we're all going through this. It's not one person who isn't able to play. It's literally like all of us are not able to play right now. So I think if we can just try to look at it in a more positive light and take this time to better ourselves mentally and physically, I think that's like the best thing we can do. And then once seasons do come around, we're prepared for it.
Yeah, I think you probably hit on what 90% of the athletes out there felt like. It's, hey, something's ripped away from me. I have no control, because I think, especially those of us who play athletics, right, or athletic, and we have a drive to do something, we're in control. We like feeling in control, and when you rip control away from us, it's a very scary thing.
Oh yeah, earth-shattering sometimes, you know.
Earth-shattering. And I know we talked about this last episode with Josh. I don't think I've ever asked you this question, but is there anything in your athletic career where you've had to deal or overcome with an injury? Because I think a lot of times our athletes are coming to us injured, because we do a lot with kind of orthopedics around the city, where we're getting injured athletes into our program and having to bring them back. And I know a lot of times, even unfortunately, our healthy athletes will get injured, and I think it's a big topic that a lot of us don't talk about. Is there any obstacle you've had to overcome in your athletic career, whether it be an injury or something else, that you might be able to share with us?
Honestly, I've been pretty lucky, injury-wise, throughout my, knock on wood, throughout my career, not getting too many injuries. I mean, there's been the typical broken toes, sprained ankles, things like that have kept me out. Well, my ankle kept me out for like a game or two. But my perspective with that, it was something I could still control, basically. It wasn't, life-changing. It wasn't season-ending. So I was kind of able to take the pain and just kind of overlook it, do rehab, get back into it. So I have been very lucky where I haven't, had a major injury that kept me out for more than, 1 or 2 games. I am an athletic trainer, so I have worked with athletes that have experienced that. 2 of my teammates, old teammates for Northern Kentucky, in one game, one tore her ACL for the second time, and one also basically blew up her elbow, shattered her elbow in multiple places. So for them, those were season ending, and to see them kind of go through the mental aspect of not having any control and not being able to obviously get back right away has been something that I've been able to see along the way and actually work with them and help them. But you can see it's a mental thing when you're physically not able to play and you're not able to do the one thing that you love most in the world. Like, I know for me, if I, couldn't play in a game or something, that just added so much more stress to my life, because soccer was my way out, my escape to everything else that was happening in life. And I feel like right now, in a time where all of us athletes wish we could have our escape, we could play, and we can't right now. Now we got to find new ways to escape, and it's scary because athletes, like you said, like to have control. We like to do our thing, be, told what to do, when to do it, and, not having that right now is very scary. So this is probably the first time, I've also faced something like this, and obviously it is really frustrating not being able to coach or to play, but it's something we just all have to get through, kind of.
Yeah, it's obviously something none of us have ever experienced, being told what to do at this level, and losing control. Now, as many of you may know, and she just alluded to, Payton is kind of a dual role for us. She's an athletic trainer, and she's also a strength coach, performance specialist with us. And I guess what led you down that path, okay, versus the many other career options that you had? Is there one kind of memory you can think of where it's like, that's what turned me on to kind of the science? And I know a lot of you aren't familiar with this. Like, her ultimate goal here is to become a physician's assistant and have that, obviously. But kind of what has kind of led you down this path to being an athletic trainer / strength and conditioning coach. And I know you've already alluded to kind of why you coach, but I think more specifically, what made you interested in that? Because I know a lot of us that have gone into athletic training did that because we were injured and we were athletic and it was kind of our outlet.
Yeah.
So obviously you haven't had the major injuries that like myself has had that led us to this career. But I guess if you could share that with everybody, that'd be great.
Yeah. So obviously I always knew I wanted to do something in the science realm. That was what I've always excelled in. Even in high school, I took AP Bio. I took all the AP science classes, history, math, not my forte. So I knew I needed to do something science related. I came to NKU and I met the best athletic trainers in the world. Molly Woods and Steph James at NKU basically were my role models into why I became an athletic trainer. Steph James was my actual athletic trainer for soccer, so I became very close with her. Obviously, I didn't have the injuries, but I was in the athletic training room every day, ice bath or getting taped or, just random things. And I just saw the passion that she had, and she was also an athlete growing up. And one of the things that I realized that I loved was I loved the fact that she was able to help me be the best that I could be for my sport. And if I was injured or anyone else was injured, like she was able to get us back to that point of being able to play. And for me, this is kind of a way to give back. Like I have been very blessed, obviously, throughout the years not being injured, but there's no better feeling than like if I missed a game or two, like getting back to the game and like realizing that my athletic trainer was the one who got me there. And so for me, it's kind of a way to give back to all the coaches and athletic trainers that have helped me along the way, because now I can help other athletes be their best. And there's no other feeling that's more satisfying than seeing like a player that you've worked with or trained with doing the best that they can and getting recognized out on the field or getting back to their first game. So it's kind of like something for me as a way to give back. Obviously, I also love to watch sports, so being able to be on the sidelines is also very cool. And then one game in the spring, again, I had already mentioned it, two of my very close teammates got hurt, and I was actually working as an athletic trainer for the team. And when I saw them get hurt, I was like, whew, I don't think I can actually watch the players that I'm invested in get injured. So that's kind of when I turned into the more like kind of clinical setting like here, where we're working with the athletes after they've already been injured, so I don't have to see them actually get injured, because that's terrifying.
Yeah, the acute setting.
Yes, yeah, it's not for everyone. Obviously, I would do it, but I know I get invested in anyone I work with, so I would get invested, and that would be hard for me too. So I think going into a clinical setting like this where we can help them get better after an injury or before or, during or whatever, that's more of like what I like to see. And then the reason I wanted to become a physician assistant is because while I was in school, I got to see several surgeries, and being in the surgical rooms of players that I knew at NKU and like being in that setting was also like really cool. So I know I would want to be a physician assistant for a college or an association with a college or a professional sports team, so I could, work with the athletes again. So
yeah, you're still in that team setting.
Yes. So I'd still be involved with the team. The players would still refer, to me or the physician, with the team. So I'd still be in that setting, but I just wouldn't be watching them, get injured. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. So you've played soccer now for how many years?
Since I was 3. And it's also the only sport I've ever played.
The only sport?
Only sport.
So you were specialized right out of the gate.
Yes. I tried to play softball for one game, and I ran off the field and never played again.
Okay, so that sounds like my soccer experience. So,
yes.
For those of you who don't know, my soccer story is I went to one practice, they wouldn't let me be goalie. I left, and I never showed up again. So her softball story kind of
Yes.
resonates with me.
Yes.
So, what was it? Just you didn't have an interest in any other sport? What made you specialize at that early of an age?
I think I just love to run. Like, I love to run nonstop, but I like to have a purpose to run.
Okay.
So for me, like, track athletes are beasts. Like, they're unbelievable. But I couldn't run around a track. I have to run, to an object or have an end goal. So, scoring a goal or,
Right.
Something like that. It was something where it was fun because I could just run all over the place and I love to run. And it was also very competitive. And I'm a very competitive person. And, yeah.
I was going to say, knowing your personality, you'd be hitting people on the track. Versus,
which I'm probably not allowed to do.
Right, versus what you were able to do
yes.
on the pitch where you could actually hit people, but lo and behold, you get carded for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes.
But
not very often. I actually only got 2 yellow cards my whole entire career.
Gotcha.
And
So-
my dog has now entered the video.
Well.
This is Kato for people who would like to know.
I think this is going to be audio only. We just lost video feed. So.
Oh, no. Oh, and we're back. There's
We're back.
Kato.
So, for trying to get this back on track now after the dog interruption
Yes.
here. Lost my train of thought. But where I wanted to go with that is you've been invested in soccer for a long time.
Yes.
So, looking back on your experience, and you played soccer at a D1 level, so I think this is a pretty good person for me to ask this to is, what would you look back on from your development look from middle school on, really?
Mhm.
What was missing? What could you have done more of
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't do? I know you're a lot younger than me, so you had more opportunities to do stuff like this. I know
Yeah.
you trained at a place like this in high school.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you felt was missing from your development, looking back from either your club team side or what you could have done more personally on the side?
I would say, for me, having a facility like this growing up was obviously like a huge help. I think that's one of the things. When I got to college, I was ahead of. I wouldn't say I was ahead of, but I knew more weight room related things than other players. So I was probably stronger than most going into it my freshman year, which was really helpful. I think I would have preferred to have more guidance growing up with, like, reaching out to colleges, because it can be a scary thing, like reaching out to colleges or colleges reaching out to you, like what you're supposed to say, what you're supposed to do, what is your fit, what's not your fit. And I don't think that I had a lot of guidance with that. And now, granted, I had, amazing coaches, but I just didn't have someone to, like, really guide me in how to go about it. You go, you see all these people say, oh, just send out mass emails, things like that, but that's not my style. I never wanted to send out mass emails to colleges and hope that they wanted me. For me, it was more like I wanted to get out there and just play and enjoy the sport and not have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I would have had someone who would have maybe helped me a little bit more. Granted, my situation turned out amazing. I would not trade it for anything in the world. I'm so happy I went to NKU. I had the best, 4 years there soccer-wise. Like, it was fantastic. But I think I just would have preferred to have a little bit of guidance on how to get there before that, because it was very stressful. And it was a lot of days where my mom and I were, like, ripping our hair out trying to figure out what to do and what to say and who to call. So, yeah, I think that's, like, the one thing I wish I would have had the most. And obviously, being in a setting where I could obviously train every single day and work out, like, that was a huge help for me because I became a lot stronger because of it. And I was more prepared. And that's why I think I love this setting. And I've told you that multiple times, that, like, growing up, I had this setting where I worked out every day. I had somewhere to train. And it was just like a building kind of like this where there was fields around and stuff. And I think that's why I feel at home here, because it's something I grew up with. And it's something that I can kind of put my own... I can put my own twist to it. Like, I can add on to what I learned in high school. So, yeah. Sorry.
We're going to apologize for the dog panting if you hear that in the background.
It would not be a podcast for me if my dog was not involved, though. So
this is very true. So one other thing that I wanted to touch on with you is because of your work at NKU, you kind of have this background in baseball that you've kind of gained knowledge of. What, in your opinion, from what you've seen so far, whether it be here at ProForce or previously kind of with your work at NKU as an athletic trainer, what is kind of the biggest concern you have for, I guess, baseball players when you're looking at it from a training process?
I would say, well, for me, I know a lot about pitchers. I would say that's one of the positions in baseball that comes in the training room the most.
Right, 100% agree.
So I think, growing up for kids, like, they're taught to throw hard and fast, and not always taught how to prevent injury. And I think, obviously, that you've been injured. The number one thing baseball pitchers want to do is throw hard and fast, which is understandable. That's, what everyone looks at. But I think for me, that concern is, yeah, that's great, but you need to learn how to do it in the right manner so that you don't get injured, so that you're not in the training room, every single day with a new injury. Mm-hmm. And that's something, I've seen a lot with the pitchers that I've worked with is, we have guys in there every day with something new going on with their shoulder because, they were in pain or they're not taught, like, the difference between what is actual pain or what is soreness or, what they should lift, what they shouldn't lift, specified, obviously, because pitchers should not be lifting the same as, field players or, things like that. Like, they shouldn't be, that just is not realistic. Putting the same force on, center fielder is not going to be the same lift that a pitcher should do because that's the number one way that they're going to throw their arm out or they're going to strain it or they're going to hurt it, and it's just not the same. So
yeah, I think I know one of the things just from seeing you interact with the players in here, you've kind of they've taken you because they understand, okay, she's going to take care of my arm, she's going to help me stretch, she understands kind of the rehab process of it. And I know one of the things you've seen that I see all the time is just you can tell a player what to do. It's getting them to understand the reasoning and the why behind it of why they need to repetitively do it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how many times have we seen it since, for those of you who don't know, like, we have a pitching lab inside of our facility. And once that opened, we started to see right away, it was kind of mind-blowing, like, we create these individualized warm-ups, these individualized stretching routines for these kids to throw and prepare to throw. And then you see them come in and they just hit their Jaeger bands and go right into it and don't even do any of the stretching.
Yeah.
Let alone they just say, peace out, see you. They don't do any of the post work that you told them they have to do to keep the flexibility and the range of motion that we've worked so hard to put them in. And then they come to us mid-season, beginning of the season, and end of season, and the ranges are god-awful.
Oh, yeah.
And they're having pain and discomfort. And I don't know about you, but that just drives me up a wall.
Well, that was one of the main things that I noticed. Like, obviously, you had stretched the guys before, but I think when I came in here, I was like, hey, like, you need to stretch. You need to, and for me, once I started stretching them, you can see, like, they're like, is this bad? And I'm like, well, if you're on the table and you're only getting to here and you should be, like, here, yeah, that's kind of bad.
Right.
And I'm like, you need to stretch. And they're like, oh, my arm's sore today. Did you stretch? No. Well, that's why. Like, please stretch. Please try to get that range of motion because the best thing you can do specifically, too, for a pitcher is to stretch, have that flexibility. Because, obviously, when you're throwing the same motion repetitively, you're only working certain muscles the entire time. You still got to realize that you have to work the other muscles and stretch those muscles out. And I feel like a lot of players aren't taught that. And that's something that young players also need to be taught. They need to be taught the importance of taking care of their arm because like, for me, my legs, when I played soccer, they were, like, my be-all, end-all. If I hurt them, like, I would do whatever I could to make sure that they were ready to go for every single game. And it's the same with, you know, any player in baseball. You have to get your body ready to play, and you have to do what you need to do, even if it seems monotonous and it seems like, oh, I really don't want to do my bands today, or I don't want to do my, like, post-work. Like, you need to, because that's how you're going to get your body ready for the next, you know, game or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let me ask you this. How often did you warm up your legs before you played?
Every single time.
Okay. How often did you stretch post?
As a player, probably not as much as I should have post.
There it is.
I mean, I'm guilty of it, 100%. I'm an athlete. That's why I think I am able to see it now as a coach or as an athletic trainer, because I was an athlete. I was the type of player where if I was injured, I wanted to run away from my athletic trainer. I didn't want to tell them, because the last thing I wanted to do was be held out of a game. I didn't want them to say, hey, you need to take a break. I'm like, no, I gotta save my spot on the field. I got to, do whatever I can to get in front of coach so that I can play, so that I can, be out there game day, without any issues. But sometimes that's not the best case scenario. And being on both sides of that as an athlete and understanding that, like, we have that need and that want to do whatever we can to be out there, but hide it from the people that are probably smarter than us and are seeing it at a more unbiased level. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating. You don't want to tell them, hey, I'm experiencing pain.
I totally get it. So. And I wanted to throw that out there because it's everybody, like, the warm-up is kind of like, okay, I'll do that. I understand it. I feel better when I perform, when I warm up. My body's better primed.
Yeah.
But nobody likes to cool down. Nobody wants to, and I don't. There's really no sexy way to do a cool down. Like, there's no, unless you're somebody that's in chronic pain, right?
Yeah.
Then you're not gonna be apt to take that extra time, because it's like, I'm exhausted. I just played, or I'm exhausted. I just threw X amount of pitches. I don't want to take the time to do this. But I think you have to understand what the long-term play is here. Mm-hmm. And if you do this, your career could be extended by X. You might be able to throw harder because you have better ranges of motion and so forth. So I think athletes that are listening to this, like, understand what the benefits of the regen at the end is, and why you should do it. And I know for us, a lot of our athletes have kind of taken to kind of post-session doing stuff with us now, whether it's stretching or
the stem unit,
using the stem units. And I think that's just because it's kind of becoming a habit. And hopefully, if we can build the habit in the weight room, hopefully it'll carry over to the field, because they understand how they feel afterwards.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of times it's hard to get that in because of the busy nature of everybody. So I would challenge everybody to try to set the schedule, whether it's understand what you need to do to prime yourself, understand what you need to perform, and understand what you need to do to kind of reset and regen. And for each of us, that's different, because I know you had kind of mentioned previously that, hey, I was in the ice baths a lot and stuff like that. So everybody has a different way of doing the regen process. But I think we all need to know what works for our bodies and do it instead of just kind of casting it aside. So to kind of wrap this up here, is there anything you can think of, and I know you've been here a shorter amount of time, but I know Josh brought up a good point. So anything you can touch on that's kind of like a frequently asked question that you can remember from being in here, or that gets brought up a lot by parents, or that you just kind of want to touch on real quick?
I would just say, again, like, obviously my specialty is with, rehab and, stretching, things like that. So I would say for me is just one of the things that the kids ask me the most is, like, why am I doing, stem to my arm? Why am I using the Theragun? What is it doing? And again, we just talked about it. Basically, it's just something to make your arm, like, relax after the stress of what you're doing in here. Like, you're not coming in here and just lifting a water bottle. Like, you're actually tearing your muscle fibers in your body every time you lift a weight that's heavy. Like, and you have to come in and
don't scare people.
No. It's not a bad thing. Like that, it's just a natural thing. You, in order to have muscle growth, you have to tear muscle fiber.
Absolutely.
It's just, and it's very minuscule, like very tiny. You're not, tearing your quad in half or anything like that. That would be bad. But what I'm saying is like, we have the kids ask, well, why do I need to do the stem? What does it do? Well, basically, it makes you feel better. If it makes you feel better, then it's going to make you perform better. If you're performing better, you're going to be happier. So the big thing is, for me, before, middle, during, after, whatever you want to do, ask us the questions of, we're feeling this, we don't feel good, what should I do for it? Ask us every day what you should do for it, because we're not gonna cast you aside and say, nah, you know what, not our problem, go ask someone else. We're gonna make sure that we take the time to help you, because you are our athletes too. You might not play on a team that we're coaching, but we spend the time and dedication to get to know each and every one of you guys, and we want to make sure that you're okay. We want to look after you. So for me, ask us the questions even if you're scared of the answer, or ask us the questions if you don't know it. Don't just hide in the corner because you're not comfortable. I think we're the most approachable staff that I've ever worked with. Immediately when I was an athlete, I felt like I could ask you guys anything. And so, yeah, my big thing for, the kids is maybe not a question they ask us, like a general question that they ask us, like what we get asked the most, but I would say just ask the questions. Like, obviously, I haven't been here very long, so there isn't one thing that stands out to me, but I would just say continue to ask the questions no matter how many questions you ask. I've always been the type of person who would probably ask the same question until I'm blue in the face, until I get an answer I like. So for me, it's just ask the questions, because if there's no questions and there's no answer, and then you're left wondering constantly. So.
Right. There is no such thing as a dumb question.
Exactly.
Although I feel I've been asked a lot of dumb questions. So...
probably a lot by me.
We won't go there. But yeah, so thank you for coming on the podcast, Peyton.